Welcome everyone to our Fundraising Academy monthly webinar. We're so glad to have you here. My name is Muhi Khwaja. I am not LaShonda Williams, but I'm happy to step in and be here with you all, with my great friend, Jack Alotto. We're going to be talking to you about becoming a CFRE. You're going to learn some tips, strategies, and get a proven study plan. There's nobody better than Jack to teach this. And I'll share a little bit more about him once we do his intro. So jump in the chat, tell us where you're coming from, and we'd love to hear from you in terms of what part of the world you're joining us from. I'll share a little bit more about myself as you do those intros in the chat. I am a trainer with Fundraising Academy. My name is Muhi Khwaja. You see a few letters after my name. I got my master's in public administration at the University of Michigan. I got my undergraduate degree there as well. I earned my CFRM, which is a certificate in fundraising management through Indiana University many moons ago, and also earned my Certified Fundraising Executive certification as well. I see a lot of familiar states and cities. My background, I grew up in Michigan. I lived in San Francisco for 10 years. That's where Jack and I met. And then I currently live in Tampa, Florida. So it's a pleasure to be here today. We got Uganda representing.
Wow,
Wow,
yes,
that is
yes.
amazing. I know
Uganda.
many people said where they're from, but I think a special shout out goes to Rachel from Uganda.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and then even Saskatchewan, that's a
yeah.
far distance too.
You
Um,
know, Louis, just we have one CFRE in Uganda. There's a gentleman in Uganda who actually took my study group several years ago as a CFRE, works for the United Nations. Maybe that's how she found out about CFRE from that guy.
wow. I love all the connections you have, Jack, and you have such a broad and diverse network. I think it goes to speak just to your character and who you are as a person and how committed you are to the CFRE. So I'm going to praise you a lot today. So just get
Yeah,
comfortable with
you know
it and
what?
accept
Bring
it.
it on, baby.
Great.
Athens,
Um,
Georgia. Yes.
Absolutely. I wouldn't even be surprised if Athens, Greece shows up today. So we'll work on it. We're
I
manifesting
see,
it.
I'm seeing people who are just graduated from my last study group on here. Ava,
Amazing.
it's just great.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. Um, so let's move on in terms of what we are going to be covering. And with that, I'll tell you a little bit more about Fundraising Academy. We are here for many people just like yourself who are in the field wanting to learn more. And we host webinars like today's session, along with a whole host of resources for you in our online learning portal. So definitely check out fundraising-academy.org and you will get introduced to so many great resources that will help you throughout your career, not only today, but in the future when you need it. And there's so many CFRE
Yeah.
approved credits for you to learn. And just we have a fundraising essentials certificate and so many other goodies that the FA team has been working on.
Yeah. It's funny because I always get the question, how can I get more continuing education credits to meet that 80 learning curve that CFRE asks? And I always say, guys, this is a no-brainer. mylearningportal.org. Lots of free resources up there. And even today's webinar is going to give you some continuing education credit. So use
One and a
that.
half.
One and a half is better than none and a half, right? So so I really urge you. I just have to reiterate that. I know we're going to have a conversation. We've got some time, so I thought I would interject that.
Absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit more about the cause selling cycle. And this is our methodology and framework around best practices of not only securing a gift, but retaining donors. And you may be familiar with the traditional major gift life cycle, but the cause selling cycle really represents each and every step through these three phases that it takes to have everyday, ordinary fundraisers to become great, extraordinary fundraisers. So, very briefly, many of you are probably still familiar with these concepts, but I want to share them from a Fundraising Academy lens and what it means to be part of the cause selling cycle. As a traditional fundraiser, and by that I mean my first job was in fundraising. I went to school, I had an internship in fundraising. This was the career I set out in. Um, the term selling used to cause a lot of ick for me. It was very like, that's what they do, not what we do. And it took me a while. I've been with Fundraising Academy for 3.5 years. And maybe around the 2 year mark, it really settled in for me. And now I absolutely love the cause selling cycle. It's a methodology and framework that I share with clients. It's a methodology and framework that I share in my hat and role outside of FA. And it really just goes to show that even in consumerism, even in sales, there are best practices that can be applied, and vice versa. There are things from the nonprofit world that could make the corporate world better. And I think this mix of selling and basing it with a cause really is that implemented and personified. So, prospecting is everything that you do to qualify a donor. The pre approach is everything that you need to learn about your donor before you approach them. The approach really is how you go about introducing yourself and knowing that first impressions matter. Then, need discovery is figuring out what aligns with the donor and your cause and your mission and how to make that connection. Then, you will present to the donor and you need to learn the donor psychology. How do they like to receive information? What can you share about your mission that it will resonate with them? And in that presentation, the donor or the prospect will have questions, and that's handling objections. So Jack always famously says that an objection only is there to get you closer to a yes. And the questions that they're asking is maybe because they need to clarify the information, or maybe you gave them an infographic, but they really wanted to hear a story of impact and they needed that clarity. And of course, the ask is quantifying the support that you need. It's asking them to support the mission and making a meaningful gift. And then stewardship is everything after the ask, and probably the most important step in order to build your donor base and keep them giving year after year, and to even have them leave a planned gift. So very briefly, it doesn't do it justice. Each of these phases and each of these steps could be their own webinar. And if you go to the learning portal on our website, you will see many of those webinars deep diving into these topics. So I'll leave it at that. And we're here to learn about CFRE. I know that everything will be recorded and shared with you in a timely manner within a few weeks. But I want to introduce Jack. Many of you already know him. Many of you already love him because of who he is as a person. He's somebody that told me to believe in myself and believed in me more than I believed in myself early on in my career. And I just love being around Jack because you just feel that confidence exuding about who he is as a person, who he is as a fundraiser, who he is as a social justice advocate. and just a really beautiful person.
Well,
And I
thank you
say that
so
with
much.
my full heart
I know
because
you're a great guy too. I'm glad I'm honored to know you. I'm honored to be your friend, your colleague. You could put a whole bunch of titles up there. You're an awesome person as well.
likewise, Jack, likewise. Jack has been with Fundraising Academy and National University before it was even called that. So as much as I will adore Jack, I will also roast Jack and say that he's been with NU longer than anybody else. And
Not longer than Pearl Hoagland, that's for sure. Uh,
um, but I'll turn it over to you, Jack. Let you do your
sure.
thing.
Yeah.
You know this material in and out, and we're so blessed to have you teach all of us what it means to become a CFRE.
Well, I see already questions in the Q&A. People definitely ask questions in chat. And Brianna, our really smart technology person today, she'll bring those questions to me. I really want to hear it. I want this to be a conversation among friends. We're all friends. And, I love the fact that you guys are looking at this journey, because it's a journey that is going to transform so many things that you do as practicing fundraisers, but it's also going to do so many things for you as a human being. That's my story here. Here's the agenda, guys. What is a CFRE? You probably already know what that is. Why become a CFRE? That's a good question. I'm gonna call on Muhi when we get to that to ask why he became a CFRE, how to pass the CFRE exam, tips and strategies that I've learned along the way, working and coaching with people who are taking the CFRE exam, creating a study plan. I love plans. One of the things that I always like to say, we create plans for everything in fundraising. Why aren't we creating plans for ourselves? A study plan, a career plan, whatever the plan is. I have plans that I write almost daily in my calendar of things that I'm going to do that day. And focus, determination, and being positive about where you could go. So that's what we're going to do. But first, Muhi, do you want to introduce our poll?
Drum roll, please. So Brianna is going to be launching this poll for us, and it's really just how many years of fundraising experience do you have? So you should see it on your screen now, and it looks like we've got a pretty good distribution. We've got some long time committed fundraisers in the room. About 30% of you have more than 10 years. Um, about 15% of you have 8 to 10 years of experience. Another 30% are in that 4 to 7 year. And a minority, but a significant minority, about 20% are under 3 years. So glad to see that FA is for everybody. We love that you all are here. We love that you're interested in becoming a CFRE, even this late in your career. So more power to you.
Yeah. When I see that group of a year, I love those people because then they're already focused on where their career is going to go. And that sweet spot of 4 to 7 years, I always say that's the CFRE sweet spot where people achieve their CFRE in that stage of their career. So, how about this second poll, Brianna? Can we launch that as well? Thank you. Where are you in your CFRE journey? I'm always interested in this.
Excellent. Okay, so this is very relevant to the people attending here. Um, Many of you are still trying to decide if the CFRE is something you should do. And this is a good stat. I would love at the end of this session to run this poll again, because
Okay.
what I would
Yeah.
really love to see is that 50% of you are convinced that you should become a CFRE. And from there, 30% of you are certified to take it,
Nice.
20% of you have already picked it. So good on you. We need to get that 50% who are unsure to get to the next stage to study.
Yeah.
So you'll learn
Yeah.
everything today, and then you can join one of Jack's study groups. There
Yeah,
you go.
definitely. And I'm a CFRE ambassador, so reach out to me via email. I'd love to chat with you about your journey. I did that with Muhi several years ago, and it's always fun for me
2016, many moons ago, Jack.
to in 2016, I was in elementary school. What are you talking about?
You wish, you dinosaur.
I've been called a lot of things, but never a dinosaur. But this is great, guys. Thank you for coming today. This is so well. So that 51%, those people who are scheduled to pick the test date, I'd really like to talk to you if I'm not already talking to you. Those 14 of you, reach out to me. Let's chat. So the big question is, why get this? What does it do? Whether it's achieving your CFRE or getting a master's degree or achieving the fundraising fundamentals essential certificate at the Fundraising Academy, it shows to the world that you are interested and that this is your profession. When you get the CFRE or you get the any credential, including the essential certificate, it says to your employers, it says to your donors that this is your profession, and you want to achieve a certain level of competence. The CFRE gives you credibility, and it also enhances your career. I'm seeing a lot of job applications or announcements of jobs, and maybe you have as well, Muhi, that says CFRE preferred, and I think I'm seeing lots of those. The thing that I like to say about the CFRE is the CFRE is Certified Fundraising Executive. An executive sounds to me like the highest level you could achieve in any profession. It's not certified fundraising manager or officer. It's certified fundraising executive. And that means that you have achieved a certain level of competence and that you know a lot about fundraising. If I were an employer, that's the person I would want. It also shows that you are committed to the fundraising profession and to learning more about fundraising. It provides recognition. Last Wednesday, this very day last week, I talked to a young woman who just got her CFRE, and her employer gave her a $25,000 a year raise. True story. And I thought, wow, if anything, if that doesn't show how you could raise your salary, then nothing does. In fact, that last point says it raises your salary an average of 17% more. I've talked to people who said they got a week off from once they achieve their CFRE. Their employer says, take a week off, a paid week off on us. Congratulations. I remember, I don't know about you, Louis, but when I got my CFRE back when I had a run from dinosaurs, I went into work and I said, hey guys, I found out today that I got my CFRE. And they were like, what's that? Well, back then, not many people knew what CFRE is. Today, people know a lot about CFRE. And it gives you personal satisfaction. I can't tell you the number of people I've talked to who had this goal, and once they achieved it, they were running on cloud nine. So one of the reasons why I do this is to watch people have that enjoyment at really succeeding at something. That's just so great. So what is the CFRE? It's a credential, but it also shows that you have mastered 6 really important fundraising domains. Muhi talked about the eight modules in cause selling. CFRE has a cause selling cycle. I mean, a CFRE cycle. Hank Rosso has a fundraising cycle. They're all over the place. But the one that's these 6 domains are what is really critically important. You start with prospect research. And what I found and like to say is that if you don't have any prospects, you're not going to have any donors. And this domain really talks about how to find prospects and gives you a number of tools like Rosso's concentric circles, for example, as a tool to help you acquire new donors, prospects to put in that donor journey through your organization. Okay. Securing the gift and relationship building are two huge domains in the CFRE domain cycle. And what they are is about building relationships with your prospects once you found them in domain one and moving those prospects through cultivation, relationship building. I really like to say this. CFRE is a relationship building model of fundraising, not unlike the cause selling cycle, which also is a relationship building model of fundraising. So CFRE emphasizes relationship building and it is a donor centric model of fundraising. And that seems to be what works. Volunteer engagement is the fourth domain. I always like to say this, without volunteers, we wouldn't be able to achieve very much of what we do in fundraising. Volunteers bring such an important thing, and that's the fourth domain. Leadership and management. This is where we see things about capital campaigns. We see things about planned giving campaigns. We see things about marketing of both of those, as well as just marketing your and strategies that you use to talk about your organization. And finally, ethics and accountability. Ethics and accountability runs through every single one of these domains, but this domain at the very end, which I think CFRE very rightly has pushed to the forefront, has really been something that I really think is that's really important. In we learn about case for support, we learn about Ross's concentric circles, we learn about a whole bunch of techniques that really work to help us move along. So there are three essential ingredients to pass this test. I say this over and over again. There's a video of me saying it with my dog in the background about the three essential ingredients to pass the test. One is content. You have to understand and know the key content areas of those 6 domains. Okay. 2 is strategies. Strategies to pass a multiple choice test. A multiple choice test, which has a variety of things that you may not have seen in previous multiple choice tests. And the third thing, and I think one of the most important things, is you having the confidence, the drive, the focus, the determination to achieve this credential. Okay. The wonderful thing that I'm going to recommend, and we love this, the study guide. I love the CFRE study guide, and I urge you to purchase it. It's the only book that CFRE publishes. In the beginning of that study guide, they have a few pages where they ask you to self-assess your knowledge in those 6 key domains. From that, when you assess your knowledge, I urge you to write a study plan. And I know we'll talk more about that later on, but a study plan that is based on your assessment of your knowledge in those key domains. I always like to say you have to know your learning style. When I was a kid, I drove my parents crazy because I was one of these people who would walk around the dining room table, you repeating over and over again some poem that I had to learn in elementary school or some theorem in geometry, because that was my learning style. Today, I see my learning style as a guy who gets a book, opens it, reads stuff, underlines, uses a yellow highlight marker, and then I write notes from it. That I use the notes for study, and the book gets closed. So you have to understand your own learning style. You guys didn't get this far in life without doing some really important things, whether it's graduating from high school or getting a master's degree or a PhD. You've got this, you've got a learning style that helped you. Try to figure out what got you through that high school chemistry class, which, by the way, I didn't pass. So I had to go to summer school for that. But so learn, understand, discover your learning style. The best fundraising practices. What is the best way to qualify a donor so that you can move them on to cultivation? I love one of the best things I love about the Compass Study Guide is at the end of each domain, and also in my study groups, I do this. At the end of each domain, they have a section called additional best practices. And I have not found a single practice in all 6 domains that I don't thoroughly agree with. Whether it's in ethics, of building transparency, being transparent as an organization, or in prospect research, asking your board members, all of those best practices are really important. Asking your board members for prospects, best practice in prospect research. So I love all of those best practices and ethics. The role that ethics play in our profession is enormous, in my opinion. I like to say this last point, and if you've ever been in a study group, I always say, don't memorize. You don't memorize fundraising concepts. Instead, what I urge people to do is understand what it is, when you use it, how do you use it, and why do you use it. We also emphasize that in the cost selling cycle. What is it? When do you use it? How would you use it? And why would you use it? And there's lots of examples of that. Consider Rosso's concentric circles. What is it? It's a series of circles with various names of constituencies that you have in your organization. You start, when do you use it? When you're looking for donors. You could use it when you're looking for annual giving donors, major gift donors, planned giving donors, endowment donors, whatever it is. What you do is you start in the center and you work your way out. That's how you use it. Why do you use it? Because you go to your board members, you go to your major gift donors and say, hey guys, do you know anybody in your circle of influence, your network, who would be interested in our cause, our mission, our vision, and our values? So don't memorize. Instead, know what, when, how, and why. So what are some of the components that CFRE says? And I've talked to people about this. I've met with people who have passed the CFRE, and I said to them, hey, what did you do? What were the things that you do? So I'm going to throw a question to Muhi, who is a CFRE. Muhi, take a look at this slide. How did you do it? What were your components?
You were a big component of my study plan, Jack. Um, you know, I have never been a strong test taker. Oh, I don't know if I want to say this on the recording, but my SAT score, let's just say it was, yeah, I'm not going to publicly say it. um, it was bad. It was bad. And even my ACTs, it was like low 20s. So I think the first time I took the ACT, I got a 19. And then I got eventually better the more I took it. I had to take it 3 times. So definitely not a strong test taker myself. But it's not in any shape or form an indication of where you're gonna go in life, right?
Yeah,
So to me, studying for the CFRE is more so for the accolade, it's more so for the notoriety. That's why I did it. I as a consultant, independent of my day job, wanted to have something that showed others that I knew what I was talking about.
sure,
That's why I
sure.
did it. And the
Yeah,
way in which I studied was, I think I was in 2 of your study groups back to back. And that helped me tremendously. I ran through the study book back and forth probably 5 times,
yeah, yeah,
right? So I knew the study book. I also looked up online resources. I found like a link to some flashcards and stuff like
yeah,
that. That was helpful for me. And then an accountability partner. And you
yeah,
say this all the time in your study groups.
yeah,
So for me, that's what I did. Maybe I did put 80 hours all together.
yeah,
But it was over the
yeah,
course of a few months, so it didn't feel like a
yeah.
lot.
Uh,
And once I set the test date, then it was game on. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
buckle up. And
Yeah.
I'm a procrastinator myself, but I'm a very high functioning procrastinator.
Yeah.
So I'll
I
say
think,
that.
and I don't think the things that you're describing are uncommon to a lot of people. There are a lot of people out there who share those attributes. One of the things that I really like about creating a study plan, and I really do think those of you who said that you have picked a test date or that you're about to certify, once you pick that test date, I always say this: create a study plan working backwards from that testing. Now, everybody tells me 80 hours. I talked to a guy in Phoenix, Arizona. He said 80 hours. It took him 80 hours to prepare for the test. I've talked to other people, they say 80 hours. And I think that's probably correct if you read the materials. So far I've recommended one book, but there are other books I like to recommend. I love Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, fifth edition. I think it's an awesome book. I love Fundraising Basics, third edition. I think that's an awesome book. And I really do think that the Compass Study Guide is really a foundation to passing the test. Some people can't read for hours on end. I can't read for hours on end. I'm right now reading Relationship Fundraising, which was published last year. I can't sit down and read 30 pages of that book. I need to break it up. I do short reading bursts, then I do something else. Take my dog for a walk or some other thing that I want to do. I like to review things. I like to create notes, as I said, but I think one of the most important things is joining a study group, and not just mine out there. There are plenty of study groups out there. And one of the things that I have found is that a study group, study plan, all of those things are accountability partners, and they keep you motivated. They really do. They keep you motivated. One of the things I like to do with the study group, we practice positive affirmations. A positive affirmation would be something that, like this: I will be a CFRE on July 30th. That's the date of my test. And on that date, I will be a CFRE. I did that when I was preparing for the CFRE exam. The other thing that you will see in the Compass Study Guide, and it's not an expensive book. I'm sure you could borrow it from somebody. You get it on Amazon. Sometimes Amazon runs specials on it. So take a look at that. The other thing about the CFRE is that they, at the end of each domain, they give you a little quiz, 5-question quiz. And I love that. And the reason why I love that, because CFRE wrote the book, excuse me, CFRE wrote the book, and they also write the questions for the exam. And when you see those questions at the end of each domain, you know what? That's the way they're going to write the questions on the test. The other thing I like, which is not on this slide, is I like people to purchase the practice test at CFRE International, because that practice test is yet another good way to understand how they write questions over the 6 domains. And also, it's another way to assess your knowledge. I like to tell people this: purchase the practice test, carve out 4 hours, because the CFRE test is a 4-hour test. Carve out 4 hours, tell your husband, tell your wife, tell your cat, tell your children, I need 4 hours today to do this test. Take that practice test for 4 hours and then look at your score in each domain. Then go ahead and create your study plan. Now, I'm a guy who says you could purchase the practice test for 30, 60, I think, or 90 days. I think you only need it for 30 days. Don't tell CFRE I said this, okay? I think you only need it for 30 days, because if you keep taking that practice test over and over again, what's going to happen? You're going to memorize the answers and memorize the questions, and that is not an effective study plan, okay? So you take it the first time for 4 hours, do all of your studying over the next 30 days, trying to fit in 80 hours, study all the content, and then take it again at the end of the 30 days. and look at your two scores. And then what you get on that second test, that second practice test, what I urge you to do is revise and pivot your study plan to match what you've seen on there. Okay. So those are some of the strategies I think you could use and hacks that you could use that are really important. I believe in focus, determination, and positive affirmations. Okay. The thing that I love, the thing that I really love about working with people who are on the CFRE journey is their determination. They want it. They really want it. And I really want them to get it. Okay. I talk to people almost every workday who are preparing for the test and, one-on-one meetings that I have. And they're always saying, I want to do this, even if they haven't passed the test yet. Okay. So one of the big things that I believe in is the power of yet. If you've taken the test and you haven't passed the test, you notice I'm not using the failure word. I never use the failure word about CFRE or pretty much anything in life. You just haven't passed the test yet. Don't be discouraged. Be future focused. That's what the power of yet does. It focuses you on the future. I love positive affirmations. I've used positive affirmations probably for the last 30 years. There's plenty of books out there about it. Say to yourself, I will be a CFRE on such and such a date. Say to yourself, I will be a person who studies for a half an hour for the next 3 months every day. Okay. Say those things because you will follow what you say you will do in your positive affirmation. Believe in yourself, guys. That's the third thing, a third way that you pass the test. Content, strategy, and you. Believe in yourself. Believe that you can do it. Get rid of the imposter syndrome, guys. Let's get rid of it right now. Because I can't tell you the number of people who say, well, I don't know, I haven't done this or I haven't done that in life, and I'm not this or I'm not that. Then once they pass the test, I've actually received emails that say this, Muhi. Today, I did a huge step in overcoming imposter syndrome. Just love that. Fear is another factor. Do you have anybody ever read uh it's in oh gosh, I'm gonna forget the name of the novel, where they say at the end of the novel, fear is the mind killer. And maybe somebody in the group knows where that's from. I believe that. So don't be afraid to not pass the test. Be afraid not to try. That's what I say. Study hard and go into the exam with the mantra that you will pass. I love that. The CFRE is a credential that tells the world you believe in excellence in fundraising and you've achieved it. You've achieved a level of mastery that shows your employers, your board members, your donors that you have arrived. I love that. Positive affirmations, being determined, etc. I always like to say this. Fundraisers have power. We are such a powerful profession. We find out so many things. We're teachers, we're managers, we're leaders, we're negotiators, we're activists, we're analysts, and we're cheerleaders. But most important, I think one of the biggest things we are is we are boundary sprinters. We go from the nonprofit to the community, from the community to the nonprofit. That is such an important role. We have power and we can do this. Let's take some questions and Muhi, chime in with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So we definitely have some good questions.
good.
11. So people are definitely interested in hearing more. Um, in terms of the credit that you receive for CFRE, Kathy, you will receive it as an individual.
Yeah.
So it will not go to your nonprofit. They should pay for your CFRE,
Yes.
right? But you will get it as an individual. Um, I'm coming from the grant writing side. The CFRE content is heavily skewed, in my experience, to major giving. What are your suggestions for someone in my situation? And similarly, coming from a small org, my brief overview of the requirements, it seems like they are weighted toward dollars raised with some numbers I might never hit in my smaller org. What do I do if
Sure.
my budget is tiny?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And listen, I was in tiny organizations, so I know what that is. Um, the only thing I could say is that they have some great people at CFRE, and the person who I like to talk to about certification, like these questions, is Paul Cavazos. Paul Cavazos, and I'll give you his email. He's just an awesome human being. His email is PCAVAZOS at CFRE.org. And that's a question really for him. I can't speak about some of those things. If somebody, Muhi, could you put it in chat?
I think
P
I did. Just confirm that it's correct.
PCAVAZOS PCAV as in Victor
Oh,
AZOS. Paul Cavazos.
got it.
Okay.
Oh, nope. Struggle bus here. We got it now. Third time's a charm. I'll
Yeah.
delete the others so
P
people don't get confused.
Cavazos.
Yeah.
PCAVAZOS at CFRE.org.
And for grant writers, if they feel like it's skewed, what would you say?
So I think that we do talk about grants, definitely. Here's the thing about grants and corporate foundations, government, they're run by people. And the thing that we talk about in CFRE is building, it's a relationship building model of fundraising. You have to build relationships with people who are the program officers, the decision makers at grants and corporations and foundations, all kinds of things. On Monday, I was in Fort Worth, mighty chapter AFP Fort Worth chapter. I loved it. And one of the questions I got in about monthly giving was, could you get a sponsor to do a monthly gift? And I said, yes, you can. So the things that I like, the things that you're going to learn in or hear about in CFRE are things that you could apply to building relationships with program officers, board members at foundations, and a whole host of people. So I think there is some transferable skills. And one of the things I like in CFRE is where we say, get rid of that us versus them attitude as it relates to foundations and corporations. And I do appreciate that because I started as a grant writer. I just got off the phone 30 minutes before this webinar, and that guy started as a grant maker, as a grant writer, and he's on his way to taking the test in a couple weeks. So it's the journey of many of us started in grant writing, and some of us have stayed in grant writing, and that is such an important skill. But even having a CFRE as a grant writer, I think it's a good professional indication that your understanding of fundraising is broad and has depth. What else do we got? I hope that helps, guys. What other questions? Let me see. I can open that.
Yeah. So we got more questions for sure. What's the case for an organization supporting someone seeking a CFRE? How do I sell this to my ED as a good thing for me to pursue? What's the benefit to my organization,
Yeah,
especially somebody in marketing, but they're supporting the foundations? And
yeah,
another comment to that is the ED verbally affirmed it's a smart idea, but the org isn't financially supporting the
yeah,
decision.
yeah.
So they're working on credits on free resources, and they've
Good.
gotten through 45 credits in 8 months. So, Ashley, check out Fundraising Academy. You can get way
Yeah,
more credits through the
yeah,
recordings. They're all free.
yep.
Sign up for the online portal. You'll hit your credit requirement in no time.
All right.
Um, but yeah,
And
how do you
there are lots of other free things too. If you're a member of AFP, you and I are both have webinars up at AFP.
Yeah.
at Global, and the Fundraising Academy has webinars up at AFP Global. So
Yeah.
any of those, if you're a member of AFP, definitely access those. I think it's really important. People think, oh, wow, 80 continuing education credits. That's a lot of stuff. You would be surprised at how much you already have. I remember not too long ago, someone asked me, hey, I've only been in fundraising a short period of time. Should I put the fact that I have, I took classes in management and leadership? I said, yeah, put it up there. And if they're not accepting those continuing education credits, they'll let you know. But I say to people who are filling out the certification document, which you could fill out and leave, come back, etc., take more classes, keep filling up. It's, the living document you create at CFRE.org. Okay, so you could do that, and you could, wind your way towards, getting that certification to take the test. Now, as it relates to the employer likes the idea but doesn't want to pay for it, there are several people up there at CFRE.org who have written blogs or have a short video on how they convinced their employer to do that. So I would definitely go to CFRE.org and get that website in down. Know what's at each of those drop down menus, because there's resources there that could really help you.
Excellent. Um, any recommendations for a former CFRE who left the profession and let it lapse? Now that I'm back in the profession, should I obtain it again? Is it worth it? Catherine, I'm going to take this one because
Go ahead.
I've always been in the profession, but I let my CFRE lapse, so I had to take the exam again. Just fill out your online portal. Don't let it lapse. I understand that you switch professions, but don't do what I did. Learn from my mistakes. Your life will be easier. Taking the time to study for the second exam, that's what was challenging. Taking the exam, you know, I passed, thankfully. But it was, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of a whole plethora of things. The silver
Uh,
lining was I got to spend time with Jack more.
yeah,
Um,
that was great for me too.
so, it had its perks, but I would say just keep updating your profile. Don't let it lapse. And Catherine, in terms of getting it again, you know the answer to that. You're the only person who can answer that. If it's going to provide you value in your career, go for it.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great answer. I mean, yeah, Mui and you are not the only two people in the world who have let it lapse. Things happen in life, okay?
Yep.
Interruptions, financial situation. I'm not saying that's true of anybody on the call right now, but people change jobs and they forget. They think, oh, I got this great. I'm the executive director now, so I don't really need it or whatever. I wouldn't let it lapse. I just renewed mine in April, and so I really think it's critical that I keep and again, once you get your CFRE, you still have to, accumulate continuing education credits and other things. You could track that on their website free of charge. You don't pay the certification to take the test until you're ready to push that button to get certified to take the test. But you could just use that for weeks, really, to build up what you need to get to that point where they say, yes, you are certified to take the test, as well as after you get your CFRE to use it that way. What else you got?
Um, Ashley asks, is it better to get all the eligibility requirements done first and then join a study group and read the study book?
I say join the study group. And you know what I love about the study group? And Mui, I know LaShonda was going to be on. LaShonda and three other people formed a smaller study group. I want to say 3 years ago. I could be wrong. And what they did is they studied together, they became accountability partners, and they became very close friends. In fact, as far as I know, they still meet. All four achieved their CFRE. They still meet, occasionally, I think it like sometimes once a month, to talk about where they are in their professional career, what they see next for themselves. They've even traveled together to talk about CFRE. Two of those women are in Canada. One's in Collingwood, Canada, and the other is in St. John's in all the way in Eastern Canada. And two of them, the other two, LaShonda's in Texas, and I think Bree is in Illinois. And I love that bond that they have. They don't invite me to any of their meetings, which I'm not offended by, but I
Sound a
love
little
that bond.
salty, Jack.
Yeah. I love
Uh,
that bond that happens in the study groups.
Absolutely. So one is on, there's a few on the books. So would you recommend purchasing all of the CFRE recommended resource reading list?
If you have $4,000, go for it. But
Yikes.
I like four resources. I love Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, fifth edition. You buy it used, new, it's like $50, $60.
Yeah. It's
I've
probably
already
the
said,
one singular book that will help you with everything.
yeah, it's really a great book. And
Um,
I go ahead. I've already said that CFRE study guide. I love Fundraising Basics, third edition by Chiconti and Jacob. Those two women, I understand, have retired. It's the last edition. It's a big, thick, dark blue book. It's really good. And I like the AFP CFRE review course book that you could get digitally for $60 for 6 months. So when I look at the cost for resources, if you could, fundraising basics, new is pretty expensive, but there are lots of um, used copies out there. Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, lots of used copies out there. So
yeah.
I actually have most of the books on the recommended reading list that I found used, at various sites. My favorite place to find this is a tip, I didn't bring it up. Um, bookfinder.com. Bookfinder.com is a search engine for used books and new books. So if you put in Achieving Excellence in Fundraising fifth edition in bookfinder.com, they'll show you all the sites that are selling them and how much they would cost. So it makes your search for a reasonably priced book much easier. Some of the books on that reading list I love. Kay Sprinkle Grace's, I think, fundraising. I can't remember what it was, but her books are on there. There's lots of great books up there.
Excellent. And then do you have a slide with all the recommended books or no?
If you send me an email, I will send you a document with the recommended reading list that I
Excellent. Whoever
recommend.
the anonymous attendee was, email
Yeah,
Jack.
yeah.
All right. Was um which ones beyond the two we mentioned would you recommend it? I think we kind of just covered that.
Yeah.
Um, where can we find info on study groups?
Oh, right at the CFRE website. They publish. My next study group is September 20, 27, October 4 and 11. I haven't even given it to them yet to publish, but on their website, they publish study groups. If you're in Canada, there's a great study group up there. I know the guy who runs it. If you're in the US, certainly you could join mine. This year I'm going to have 5 study groups. So yeah, I mean, if you email me, but definitely look at their website. Those CFRE is such a resource for us that is underutilized by us. When I was studying for the CFRE exam, I hardly ever use their website. I urge you to use their website. It's really good.
And we've even done minority based study groups. I know Jack and I hosted a Muslim CFRE study group. We had people
Yep.
from Egypt, from Morocco, from Canada, the US. So, there's also been men of color. There's also
Yeah.
been
MOSID,
BIPOC
Men of
groups.
Color and Development.
Yeah.
Yes. I did a study group for them and lots of those, the thing, and I've been encouraged every time I say I'm going, I did a study group for people who cannot attend study groups on Saturdays,
Thank God.
because
Yeah.
of religious reasons. I did
Well,
that, and
yeah.
that was awesome. I did study groups. We'll
I,
accommodate. And every time I've said to CFRE, I want to do a Wednesday study group because Jewish people and some Christian religions cannot attend Saturdays because that's their Sabbath. They said go for it.
well, even more power to that. I would say if this is something you're doing for work, it should be during work hours,
Yeah.
right? Like you're studying to advance your career.
Yep.
I think work should carve out X amount of hours during the work week for you to do this. I'm a
Yep.
big proponent of that. Somebody asked about the practice exam, so we dropped the comment in the chat. Um, do you also need credits from webinars and trainings in order to get CFRE? We touched base on that. So you can get them from conferences, attending in person, online webinars, all different ways. Robin says, I'm doing study questions and get tripped up when answers are very similar. Do you have any
Oh,
tips or
there's a
tricks
strategy.
to
Yeah.
help me narrow down the choices? Love
Yeah,
this.
good. That's a beautiful question, Robin. So here's the thing that I think is so important. So, and it's a donor-centric model of fundraising. So I say if you have two answers on those practice exam questions, or even in the Compass study guide that both seem right, then what you want to do is look for the most donor-centric answer and the most ethical answer. Okay. So that's a strategy. That's a tip. That's things that we talk about in our study groups. The most donor centric answer and the most ethical answer. Aside from it being a donor centric model of fundraising and also a relationship building model of fundraising, it is an ethical model of fundraising. Ethics appear in every single domain. Confidentiality in prospect research, confidentiality, transparency, the building of trust. And guys, in our profession, we need those ethical things now more than ever. When I see donors decreasing their giving, or we're losing donors, or whatever it is, it's really about stewardship, it's about ethics, it's about really understanding the needs, the vision, and the values of our donors. What other questions we got? We've got some time.
Excellent. Based on professional practice requirement, I am probably 2 years away from being qualified. Should I wait for study for the exams once you qualify or start now?
I say start now. And the reason why I can't tell you guys the number of people who have said to me, I'm a better fundraiser as having gone through this process. I've brought, I've heard people say this to me. I've brought strategies that we've talked about in the CFRE process back to my work. I've heard people say, I talked about gift acceptance policies in our organization. And all of a sudden, light bulbs were going off in the executive director's brain that, yeah, we need gift acceptance policies, or we need a strategies for writing job descriptions for volunteers, whatever it is. So all of those things are going to enhance your career. You don't have to wait 2 years. Join a study group. In my study groups, I've had people who say, I'm not a fundraiser, I'm the executive director of a nonprofit organization, but I want to understand what my fundraisers do and how they do it. I want to be a better executive director, a better manager of them. And I think that's key.
Excellent. Let's keep it going. For CE, can we be subjected to a random audit? I would like to know
Yes.
more about how to certify class attendance and pre-recorded webinars.
So one of the things, yes, they do a random audit of applications. I don't know what percentage it is. I've never really asked them about that, but I do think it's important when you're, you just document things so that if you are audited, I know a couple people. So this webinar, for example, you get continuing education credits, and you might put it on your CEC document. And if you get audited, you might just have to show in your, I can't speak for them, but I think you might just have to show how you were able to attend this. It's on your calendar, whatever. My study group, we give continuing education credits in my study group twice, just twice in the last year. Two people who attended those study groups were audited, and they sent me an email, and I just said, I went back and looked at their attendance record in Zoom, and I said, yes, you have attended all 4 sessions of my study group. And then they just sent that on to CFRE, and that fixed it. So
Excellent.
there are things, yeah.
What is the exam score needed to pass 70, or is it pass fail? And Ava replied to Desiree, you need to score at least 500 out of the 800 possible to pass. And they ask you, they have more questions, and everybody who takes it gets a random selection of the questions, right?
Right.
And it varies within each category of the 6 categories. You have to hit the
Yeah.
minimum, right? You can't
Right.
you
So
can't fail one and pass everything. You have to
yeah.
pass each section.
Yeah. The interesting thing there are a couple things about the test that I'll mention. It's a 200 multiple choice question test.
Mm-hmm.
25 of those questions on the test do not count for your score. CFRE is testing those questions to see if they might include them in some future exam down the road. Okay. You need a 500 to pass. It's a weighted test. That means that some questions count more towards your score than other questions. How do I know that? I look at the number of questions that are asked in each domain each year and the percentage that it applies towards your score. If the number of questions go down, but the percentage stays the same, then I know that questions in that domain are going to count more towards your score. You only need a 500. In fact, I can't remember what my score was, but I hate to admit this, but it probably was just at 500. So,
Oh, I think both times I passed, it was like thin margin, but hey, I
yeah,
passed,
that's all that
right?
counts. And
Yeah.
just like my high school chemistry class that nobody asked me what my results were. No one has ever asked me, "Did you pass statistics in college?" or anything. I have never been asked what my test score was on the CFRE. And frankly, if someone asked me, I'd probably say, "None of your business." And interestingly, when I talk to people who have passed the test and they're all excited, I don't ask them what their score was. That's their business. I'm just pleased, and so are they, that they passed it.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts about fundraisers who are getting on in their career and the decision benefits to take the test, Vicky?
So you mean they're a mid-career level, they've been doing this
What
for
it sounds
10,
like.
15 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, again, I've talked to people who say, I'm approaching retirement, but it's always been a goal of mine, so I'm going to do it. And I love
Yeah.
that. You know, I I see for me, and Louis, for you too. CFRE has opened up so many possibilities for me. Okay, I'm a certified facilitator. So is Muhi. You cannot even get in the certified facilitator program until you have a CFRE. The same is true for a CFRE. And if you wanted to do some other educational programs, it really matters. If you wanted to go to Indiana University, like Muhi has done to get a graduate degree, CFRE matters. It's I say this, it's a public statement of you as a fundraiser in that you've attained a body of knowledge, but it more than just a body of knowledge. It's a public statement that this is your profession and this is where you are going to stay and wind up. And it's also a statement of your determination that you will do something to achieve some higher level. What else we got?
Absolutely.
What else we got?
And last question that's in here so far. Connor, I've noticed that some of the dynamics in my workplace regarding our board members, philanthropy committee members, and volunteers don't hold the same principles as those laid out by the CFRE. How would you recommend someone study to make sure they are thinking in line with the values of the CFRE and not what
Yeah,
they experience on a daily basis in the workplace? I love this and could say so
I do
much about it.
too. I think I don't know
Oof.
this person, but he must have been reading
Ah,
my mind.
let
Go
me
ahead,
at him.
Moody. Go for it.
Oh man, you are the professional in the room, right? You're the one who should be the authority in the room on development, especially if you have your CFRE or even if you're working towards it. Um, when it comes to a philanthropy committee or board members, oftentimes they think they know. When they have the experience, listen. When they're talking out of their arse, politely push back and re-emphasize that you are the expert authority in the organization. And it's hard to do. It's really hard to do, but it may be bold, but I think it's something that if you have the title, if you have the certification, if you have the trust of your ED, you need to be bold in that situation.
Yeah, yeah, I like
Um,
that.
yeah.
I like that, and I would also recommend, and I'm going to say this, and it's probably repetitive. CFRE is about best practices. And I think once you get the credential, and even before you get the credential, is to say, hey, I'm studying for my CFRE. And I notice in ethics and accountability, for example, that one way we could show transparency is by publishing an annual report. I don't know who could dispute that. Based on my research, I've found this, about some topic. So, CFRE is not a test of your practices, it's a test of best practices. And they get those best practices by standardizing and talking to people all over the world. In Uganda, in the US, in Great Britain, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. Last year, I had someone from Indonesia, the first CFRE from Indonesia passed the test. So they're talking to a lot of people. They're standardizing this test about best practices. It's a test of best practices. I see some additional questions, maybe, Muhi. We've got some
Yep.
time.
Can you explain the process of submitting your application and choosing an eligible exam date?
So once you get approved to take an exam, the exam, you have a year to take the exam. And then what they offer is, and I could be wrong about this, they offer windows, testing windows that you where you could schedule your exam. I don't like anybody because I hear this a lot. I don't want you to wait until the year is up to finally schedule the exam. I want you to do it sooner rather than later. If you join a study group, I want you, or you have a study plan, do it. Don't wait until the deadline is just upon you. And if you haven't passed the test yet, if you don't wait until the end of your cycle, you could retake. It will give you time to retake it and pass it. So I think that's an important strategy that you could use when you pick that test. When the other thing is, think about what's happening in your life. If you have a big gala coming up, or you're writing a gigantic government grant or some other thing, it might not be the best time. I have had people say, "Well, I'm going to have a baby in 6 months." Well, maybe that's not the best time to start preparing for your CFRE. Maybe after that happens, then you have a baby, and that's interfering with your ability to study. So try to figure out when you could do it best.
Absolutely. Anonymous says, will I lose credibility by taking on a slate of clients as a freelance advisor than if I'm an employee of a single non-for-profit, but my current pay is not sufficient when working with a single client? Do what you got to do to make ends meet.
That's
I
right.
think that you can totally be respectful to your day job that gives you a majority of your lion's share salary,
Yeah.
and also be competent enough to do extra work.
Yeah.
And hey, it's a risk, it's a gamble. But I say disclose to your manager. Other people would say not to because it poses a threat. Um, it all comes down to like living wage, right? It
Yeah.
all comes down to doing what's best for you and your family. Um, I have
Right.
often found that the consulting opportunities are better than a 9 to 5. If you can make it work, start it as a side hustle, get it to a
Yep.
place where it provides a lion's share of your income, make the transition to be your own boss. I fully support that. And yeah, I've been able to do it for myself. I know many others who've been able to do it for themselves. There's no better feeling in the world than,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
and I'll tell you what, if you're a consultant and you have the CFRE after your name, gives you credibility, guys. I think, and I do see a lot of consultants who are working towards their CFRE, lots of them, and I think it's great. You know, it it just, again, I can't emphasize enough the prestige that I see growing every year as it relates to the credential. Really important. What else? Any more questions out there?
that is it. I'm
Good.
sure some people can ask more. We have some additional time. If
Right.
people are still on, it looks like a good majority of you have stayed.
Good.
Um, and stay connected with Jack and I. I put in my LinkedIn, I put in my email. Feel free to reach out. So if you want to take away the summary, go for it.
Yeah. So the first thing is you can do this. This is not insurmountable. Gather your resources. And your resources are things like a study plan or a book, etc. Be sure you understand the essentials to pass, the content, the strategies to it. Another thing I forgot to mention about that study guide that CFRE publishes, on page 90, they tell you how they put the test together and they tell you how they construct questions. That's invaluable, guys. I can't think of any other test I've taken in my life, SATs, GREs, anything, where they told me how they put the questions together. So take a look at that. That is an essential thing to help you pass. Um, Use tips, strategies, and hacks. Think about your learning style. Think about building a study plan. All of those things. Joining a smaller study group, joining a big study group. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. It's just so important, and it will really sustain you going forward. Now, the next slide has both my LinkedIn and LaShonda's. It's great. Take a picture. Connect with me on LinkedIn, guys. Connect with me via email. Love to hear your questions. And I'm going to let Louie do this last slide because this is important, guys. And by
One,
the way, let me just say this, guys. For those of you who know me, I've participated in the creation of this learning portal, and I've participated in the creation of the fundraising certificate, as has Muhi. And I'm excited about it, guys. It's probably in my career, which is, a couple years. Um, I have probably been involved in lots of things, but one of the most important things I've done aside from the CFRE study group, is the creation of the Fundraising Academy's fundraising certificate program. It's really an awesome program. Go ahead, Muhi. Sorry to interrupt.
no, no interruption at all. Thank you so much. Again, we've been talking about the online learning portal. Scan this QR code, You get to learn about blogs, webinars, resources, worksheets, conversation questions, how to engage donors. And Jack has been a big part in all of this. And we're so fortunate to have his expertise on
As
it.
have you. You're up there too,
Yeah,
blogs, etc.
I'll take credit. I know
Okay,
I've done a
good.
lot here. Yeah, so we're happy to have you, and this will help you with your continuing education units, right? So
Yep.
make sure you sign up. It's free at no cost to you, and it's very valuable for your CFRE journey. And make sure you sign in the CFRE portal, you log things, you update things along the way, and it will help you. Once you take the exam and you pass, you're pretty much certified. You get a notification right away. Then they publish, I think, on a monthly basis, all the new
Yeah.
CFREs that came
Around
in.
the world.
Yeah. So it's a global thing, and they do it. So make sure you do your best. And again, continue to take the test until you become a CFRE. You can do it. And yeah, let's stay in touch. So next month, LaShonda will be moderating a wonderful session. They've been doing this during August for Black Philanthropy Month the last few years. You'll hear some wonderful insights from Lisa Baxter, Christopher Beck, and Nelson Bauman. So share it with your colleagues and make sure that you come to hear the challenges that they faced in their careers, and also insights about major gift work and everything in between.
Yeah, and I know two of those people, Chris Beck definitely, and LaShonda Williams, and I would attend just for that. But Lisa
Absolutely.
Baxter has some really important things that she'll talk about, as well as Nelson. So definitely register for that, guys.
So, quick question to Veronica. She said, "Do you need to be employed? What happens if you get laid off?" You can still apply
Yeah,
for your
doesn't
CFRE.
matter. It
Yeah,
doesn't
it
matter.
doesn't matter
Yeah,
if there's gaps in your resume or if you're currently
nothing.
unemployed.
None of that stuff.
Can you explain the requirements of service learning credits, or is that general volunteering?
That's volunteering, and that's a little bit different, so yeah, and the wonderful thing is that they do count those volunteer hours towards, your certification. So take a look at that. I don't know the exact mechanism how that works, but if you send Paul Cavazos an email, he'll let you know about it. And
Definitely. So the fundraising essentials certificate, this is what Jack was referring to. It's autonomous. You get to do it at your own pace. If you have a professional development budget, it's a great way to spend and learn more and get a certificate on fundraising essentials. If you have a larger team, you can get discounts for multiple licenses. And happy to have you learn more. Scan the QR
well,
code. You can also find everything on our website.
It's
Uh,
it. I can't. This is what I was talking about. One of the most important things I've done in my career was working on this project, and now it's done. Muhi, it's done. And Muhi worked on it.
Absolutely.
Lashonda worked on it. Meredith worked on it. A lot of people worked on it, and it's really
Pearl
great.
worked on it.
Pearl worked on it.
This
I'm
was like
sure.
her master
Jesty,
baby, her thesis,
yeah, it is.
right?
It is.
So
It
yeah, it
really
was
is
really
her
cool to
passion,
see.
which is nice. All right, well, we're gonna give you some time back, I guess. Yeah, like 11 minutes. Let me say thank you guys. Thank you for joining us today. And Muhi, thank you for jumping in and moderating. It was really awesome. And do connect with both of us on LinkedIn, and I put my email in chat. Feel free to email me, or you could message me on LinkedIn. All of those things work. Muhi, I'll leave it up to you to final words.
Oh, just thank you, Jack. This has been wonderful. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Uh, when you have Jack in your corner, you can do anything.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Peace.